Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the unit leader briefing today. Sorry for the short delay. Can everyone hear me okay? If you can give me a signal in the chat box or via audio, that'd be great.
Yep, I can hear you.
All right,
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for all of you for being on today. Our unit leader briefing today is focused really on the upcoming opportunity to engage with our state senators during the February 13th event. And so I really want to spend most of our time on that. It is such a timely opportunity. And before I go too much farther here, all right, we are recording, great. So it's a timely opportunity. So I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page and that if there are any questions at all, we can address those today. So why the NASEB legislative meeting? It's it's something we've been working on for the last couple of years, really. We've spent a lot of time with NASEB, with extension board members. Many of you as unit leaders have been at the Next Gen NASEB meetings, and we've talked a lot about how we have to be more engaged with our elected officials. And today we're talking about state senators, but of course year-round that includes county board members, supervisors, and commissioners as well. And how we develop a team of extension board members, and by the way, that's about 550 statewide today, that are comfortable having these kinds of conversations with the folks who are becoming more and more important to a viable extension, and for a lot of government or tax-funded agencies, really important to be friends with and have great relationships with these decision makers. So we'll talk about what participating in the February 12th and 13th events looks like. We'll talk a little bit about how we're going to celebrate the sesquicentennial. And as I just mentioned, this is really a culminating event in some ways. So all the Next Gen NASEB work we've been doing in the recent months. So I've probably over the course of the last year and a half, really through the Next Gen NASEB process, I've been collecting a lot of reasons why maybe we shouldn't engage with our senators. So I thought I might start with that today. And this is in no way meant to call anyone out. I'm not going to reference any names, but these are things I've actually heard, either from unit leaders or NASEB directors or extension board members at one time or another in the last probably 12, maybe 18 months. And so these are reasons a lot of times folks say, well, this is the reason that maybe we shouldn't take the time to do this. So, one that's very common is our senator indicates that he or she already understands extension. And one of the things I've been really happy to hear from some of you very recently is that that's not true. Because sometimes they only ask you two questions. And one is, what are you going to do after fair? Or they're only asking you a one-dimensional question every time you meet with them. They're asking you about agriculture, or they're asking you about 4-H. And we are so much more than that, obviously, and our senators really need to understand the bigger story. And they not only need to understand what they think or what was extension when maybe their children were in 4-H or when they were in 4-H, but what really does it look like today, not in yesteryear. I've also heard some folks say, well, our senators are really busy and I really don't want to bother our senator because they have so much to do. Well, they do have a lot to do. You're exactly right. But in some ways, this is a competitive process. So we need to make room for us on their agenda. And that's why it's really important to have your board members involved because, and in some cases you as well, because you're direct constituents of your board members in some cases, or your senators in some cases. So making sure they understand when you make that call or ask for a meeting that whoever's making that call, that this is a group of constituents who want some time with their elected official to have a conversation about some things, some topics that are important to you or you as a group. We're sure that our senator is supportive. We've heard that many times, and then watch senators vote against the university budget. And I know there's more to it than that, That's a complex issue in some cases. We'll talk more about that later. But even if you think they are supportive, I would encourage you to verify that. And in some cases, we're going to take another tactic, and I'll describe that a little bit later. And that is, even if you know you have a senator that's not supportive, that consistently has not been supportive, I'm going to talk about some strategies to help neutralize those folks in the legislative process. The senator's office isn't responding to our request to meet. Sometimes that's just an oversight, that's just a buried email, that's just miscommunication. If you're having a lot of difficulty connecting with your senators to set up meetings, contact me, and we have a group of folks that are going to help us establish these meetings. We have our folks who work at the UNL and NU level, Keith Mello, Michelle Waite, and company, who are very good, know these folks really well, and can help us make those meetings happen. So don't hesitate to reach out if you are having some challenges in that regard. Sometimes it's just personally, and this could be an ACEP director, an extension board member, or unit leader. It's just, I don't have time or I'm busy. And I would suggest to you that, and we hear this from a lot of government funded agencies, and even those that don't depend on government tax funding, that this process, this conversation, this relationship is becoming more important every year because there's more challenges and demands on tax-supported organizations. So this is really something we need to make time for and assemble a team, a group, to have this conversation with our senators. So I know many of you have already met with your senators once in the last 3 months or so, and I applaud you for doing that. We have some reports of really good conversations with senators from all of you, or a lot of you. So I want to thank you for having that conversation. That was an effort to start the conversation, to get to know our senators. And I know some of those have happened fairly recently, but I would really ask you to set up another meeting on February 13th for a number of reasons. One is it's important to continue that conversation and not just have it once a year. And I know in many cases that's been the routine, probably in most cases that we've been in an extension for a lot of years. It's just once a year we'll engage our senators in a formal way. I want to read to you something that was shared by Senator Dan Hughes. So Senator Hughes serves a large area in the southwest part of the state. And this was a report that NACEP Director Joe Beck shared after she, several Extension Board members and unit leaders met with Senator Hughes, probably a couple months or so ago. And I'll just read this verbatim because I think it speaks volumes to the point I'm trying to make. He said, Extension is doing a good job, and we all need to be good salespeople of that fact. He felt that it was good that we were arranging meetings with the various senators. Educating the senators and building a relationship of trust is very important. And we talk about trust a lot in our organization. Here, Senator Hughes brings it up about trust in the relationship with our senators. He said it certainly takes more than one meeting to build that type of relationship, and that he encouraged us to be engaged whenever possible. He said one-on-one meetings with staff and the senators is what is needed to build a relationship of trust, and telling Extension story is an important component of the education process. He welcomed us to call and arrange those meetings during the legislative session. So here's an example of a senator who spent quite a bit of time with a group of our folks and then invited them to contact him again when we were in town to continue that conversation. And in some cases, that conversation, we've asked for 30-minute meetings. Maybe the meeting won't be 30 minutes long if you've already had a long conversation, but being visible, reaffirming your senator's support for Extension, checking in with them would be a really good thing to do on February 13th. So number 7, this is someone else's responsibility. And of course, it's all of our responsibility. Please do your part and coordinate this with the others in your senator's district to make this happen. Another question sometimes is, and I'm kind of surprised by this, quite frankly. I hear this sometimes from veteran folks who have been in extension roles for a long time, either in a volunteer or in a paid staff regard. They say we don't know how to engage or what to say. And that's something we'll visit more about here in a few minutes, but this doesn't have to be high level, highly orchestrated conversation. The first part of the engagement is just showing up, connecting with the senator, letting them know that you care. That's why you're there. That's why Extension's there. Asking the senator question to see what they know about Extension, and then sharing some success stories, some stories that will be memorable for them as they work on budget this session. I've heard individuals say, well, this effort seems disingenuous because it does seem orchestrated, and we're very methodically scheduling these meetings, and we've already done this, now we're doing it again. That is just part of the process. That's how it works. And if you talk to anyone who's worked in the lobbying work or with other tax support organizations or organizations trying to get things done in the political process, this is how it works. And we do this at PILD every year with our national delegation. I'm sure you do this at the local level with your county boards in one fashion or another. It's just part of the process to make sure that you are being heard and that you're on the same playing field that everyone else is that's asking for funding from these individuals. By the way, if you have any questions or comments, please just type them in the chat box. So obviously those are things that I don't buy. I hope you don't buy is really good excuses not to engage. So this is kind of a cool map that is now posted on the unicameral website. So these are our current state senators, their districts. You get a little clip of the urban and the rural area. By the way, there are now 28 senators that are connected with one of our 3 most urban counties, 28 of them. So that's something we're going to be looking at addressing a little different way here in a few minutes as well. As I talked to NASEB, and during the next gen NASEB conversations, I talked a lot about these cell towers across the state and how NASEB directors were, to me, like cell towers. And as I would crisscross the state having those conversations, those towers were stronger in some areas than others. And I think that probably happens with unit leaders. It happens with extension boards. And what we want to have is as senators look across the state, the governor looks across the state, other decision makers look across the state, they see a very consistent voice for Nebraska Extension. So my ask here is that do your part. As you can see by this map, in some cases we have many extension board members, several unit leaders, more than one NASEB director, focusing on a single senator. And if you want to put that in perspective, contrast that with, bless their heart, Karen Wobig and Jane Hutton, who between the 2 of them have about 28 senators that they're trying to coordinate visits with for February 13th. So most of us have only 1 or 2 that we're working with, so please help us out. So here are some reasons to engage. So I mentioned this earlier, so find a way to better understand what your senator knows about Extension. So quiz that person a little bit. Ask what especially if they're new, all right? And if they've been there a while and they say they know a lot about Extension, ask them to describe that. So what does that look like to you? Or tell me what are your highlights, or when you're talking about Extension to another senator, how do you describe it? It'd be great to hear that, and then to perhaps help them do a better job of describing who and what we do. Obviously, we're there to inform about impactful extension, both in his or her district and statewide. Talk a little bit more how we do that here in a moment. Verifying your senator understands and supports us. Those are 2 different things. They may understand us, but do they support us? This piece about senators really understanding that a vote for the NU budget is a vote for extension, and vice versa is a critical message as we engage. In some cases, they know that and they acknowledge that, and they may say, we still can't do it, we still can't vote for the NU budget, but make sure they thoroughly understand that your program in their backyard serving their constituents is a part of the NU system. So if they vote against the NU budget, they're voting against everything you're doing in 4-H and Learning Child and Food, Nutrition, Health, and Community Environment, all of those things. They're voting against having those assets in their community. If you have senators, and we've heard a lot of folks talk about this too in the last couple of months, that are supportive, and you feel like they're rock solid. In fact, you would describe them as an ambassador for Nebraska Extension. Then one of the asks could be this: so would you please serve as an ambassador for Nebraska Extension and NU system in the unicameral? I've heard this personally from other senators who have told me that they don't, because they didn't know a lot about Nebraska Extension, they would ask other senators what they knew about Extension and whether it was a worthy cause to support or not. And we see this in our own world. We all specialize, senators specialize, some know more about some parts of their role than others. So if we have folks who are staunch supporters, let's ask them to be ambassadors for us and spread the good word about what Extension has to offer. And we can provide this some tools and stories to help do that. So as I'm describing this, you might picture this in this way. If you took all of our senators and divide those 49 individuals into thirds, you might find about a third, and this is very approximate, about a third that are very supportive of Nebraska Extension and the NU budget. And those are the folks that we need to have as ambassadors working for us in the legislature. There's another third who have not been very supportive and are pretty vocal about not being supportive. And that could be, typically it's not of Extension, but it's maybe not as supportive of the entire NU system budget for a number of reasons. We may never change the perspective of those individuals, but what we can do is ask that, because they know Nebraska Extension is an important player in their district and helping their constituents, that they not hurt us in the legislative process. They don't speak badly of us, right? So we understand their position and how they may vote, but they won't hurt us in the legislative process. So think about that if that happens to be your situation. And then there's a group in the middle. And the group in the middle a lot of times includes new senators who are just getting into this world. They're learning the role, they're learning about the demands and the decisions they're going to have to make. In that middle group, I would also put Kasner graduates. I'd put UNL graduates. This is a group of what I would call swing senators. This is the group that we really need to focus on. And that is because at the end of the day, this is the group that will probably decide whether the budget is voted for in a positive or otherwise fashion. I'll be contacting you if you have a senator that I feel is in this group, just to touch base with you about that. But if you have a new senator, you're probably certainly in that world. But there are some others, and if you look at their bio and you just know that they're a Kasner or UNL graduate, that's a connection, a relationship that we need to build upon and ask them to help us continue to move the entire university mission forward. So number 6 is about being a visible presence, a strong voice in the Capitol. We purposely scheduled the NASEB event during the 150th anniversary of the UNL system. That's going to be a very exciting week. It's an opportunity for us to connect Extension to the university. For senators and aides who don't quite understand that is, we are one and the same essentially. We'll be doing some things, and that I'll share in a moment, that connect us and show that we are indeed one. We're in their space, so we're not asking them to come to a lunch or anything. We'll be there. We'll have name badges. We'll be recognizable. We'll actually be recognized on the north balcony just before lunch that day. So NASEB and Extension boards members will have perhaps the greatest presence and visibility they've ever had in the legislative session on February 13th. And then finally, the biggest ask is asking for their support of the NU budget, because it is indeed a vote for Nebraska Extension. All right, I'm just going to keep moving along here. Notice I see some notes in the chat. And so it is a two-part process this year. And we did this to make it more convenient, offer more opportunity to have the conversations with the senators. Because really, if you look at everything going on February 12th and 13th, as far as the NASEB event goes, the meeting with the senator, that 30 minutes or whatever it is the most important piece. So on Wednesday evening, I'm just going to double check. Got my dates right there. Actually, that should be Tuesday. Sorry about that. Tuesday evening, February 12th, at the East Campus Union at 6:30, Heath Mello and Michelle Waite will be with us. And this will be a real-time update regarding what's happening in the session right now, what's the chatter about the NU budget, what are some talking points, some things that we could use the following day. It'll be very timely. I mean, that messaging can change, weekly, sometimes even daily during the session. So that piece will be Zoomed. So you and your board members will be able to watch that. You will not have to be in Lincoln that day unless you already are. We'd love to have you come over to the East Campus Union and join us in person, but that will be available via Zoom for your convenience and the convenience of your board members. And then 8 o'clock, that'll be wrapped up by 8 o'clock that evening, and then our NASEB directors will have a business meeting that evening. The next day is when we have the presence at the Capitol. So because there is a ton of construction going on in the Capitol, as many of you may know, we will actually be staging our event in the morning at the Blue Cross Blue Shield building, which is a block west of the Capitol, directly west on Centennial Mall Boulevard. The meeting times that I'm suggesting for senators have come directly from Heath Mello, Michelle Waite, saying these are our best opportunities. So from 8:30 to 9 in the morning is an opportunity because the morning session starts at 9 o'clock. Now, having said that, your senator may be willing to step out of the session and meet with you in the rotunda or back in the office, but I'm going to leave that up to you to work that out with your senator to see what makes the most sense to you and them. At 11:30 is when NASEB is recognized in the north balcony. We'll proceed to transition over to the Cornhusker for lunch at 11:45. And that'll be a working luncheon where Heath and Michelle will join us. And this will be a chance to share what you heard from your state senators and how they reacted to some of your messaging. That'll be very critical to helping us in next steps working through our engagement with senators during this session. Following lunch, we'll have a little celebration. We'll have a speaker who's going to talk a little bit about the history of UNL and the future and the entire 150 commission process. So that'll be fun, and we'll certainly be doing some celebrating. And then we'll move into NASEB awards and the NASEB membership business meeting. Something really important on the NASEB membership business meeting this year will be, I believe this will happen, is they have a major change in their bylaws, which changes the look of how representation happens within NASEB, and it'll make the NASEB a much stronger organization overall. A lot of clarity added to the bylaws over the last few months, so we're very hopeful that that's all going to come into play to be voted on during this meeting. So I said earlier, the most important part of this process is to meet with your state senator. So if the only time your senator can meet is at 1 o'clock or 1:30 or 2 o'clock, go have the meeting and skip whatever else is on the agenda. Go have the meeting. It's the most important thing any of us will be doing that day. If you're having some challenges assembling the right group in your mind to have that meeting with your senator, I'd encourage you reaching out to your NASEB director if that's someone you feel would be helpful in the process. Maybe you feel like it's a NASEB director, not yours, but in the region that would be more helpful in your particular situation because of what your senator is really interested in and how they might connect with another NASEB director. So think about that strategically. I know you did a great job with this in the last 3 months. I clearly see you had the right people at the table during those visits. But think about that for this visit as well. This doesn't have to be a huge group of people. It could be 2 or 3 or 4 individuals. But it'll be really fun to have all these individuals recognized in the balcony just before lunch that day, so the senators will all know that we are there. So when you check in at the Blue Cross Blue Shield building that morning, we'll have a packet for you, and it's Husker red folder. It will have the county impact reports in the folder for all the counties in that particular senator's district. And by the way, thank you for generating those. Those are becoming more well known. I've had Heath Mello and Michelle Wade have been talking about those, asking about those. When are they going to be done? We can use those again. So I want you to know that those are really good pieces. They're one pages. They highlight 3 big ideas, and they're working. So please keep up the good work there. We'll have some general pieces in that packet as well. So I think it was last week that ag builders met on campus and had their legislative engagement piece. So they have a nice one-piece flyer that is kind of an overview of impact statewide. And it's not all production agriculture. It's some other things, food, nutrition, health, et cetera, that are related to agriculture that are included in that piece. So we'll include it. We're also working on just kind of a general extension overview piece that will be in that folder as well. There will be the Flat Herbie cutout in the folder, and that is something after you have your meeting with your senator, we'd like you to do a photo op with your senator with Flat Herbie. So this is a part of connecting the university with Extension. Yep, we're all one. We are the same institution. We work together in a seamless fashion. So take a picture of Flat Herbie, then you can leave Flat Herbie with your senator and ask them just to put that in their office. And that could be a visible reminder of this meeting and this important connection throughout the session as they see that in their office. If you have other ideas for pieces you might put in your packet, if you would just want to include in your packet, just contact me about that. We want to keep that pretty minimal because we know that the senators don't like a lot of paper, a lot of things to go through. An example of something I might see added in the Lancaster or the Douglas Sarpy offices is because you have so many senators throughout your counties, is maybe a copy of one of your newsletters, or if you have an extensive annual report, we could put that in there as well. So we may add a few items to some of these folders depending on the situation. But that will be this will all be prepared for you and just ready to pick up at the Blue Cross Blue Shield building whenever you arrive. We'll have someone at a staging area there, and you just pick that up and be on your way over to the Capitol. But I'd also like you to think about social media follow-up. So Dean Hibbard talked about this during his recent chat with Chuck and how we really wanted to elevate our social media visibility and presence. So after you take those photos with your senator, go ahead and tweet that out. And obviously make sure that you include your senator's Twitter handle in that tweet. Also, at least some of the hashtags here. Include that NE for NU hashtag for sure. Your senators will love this. They love the visibility, knowing they're meeting with constituents and and they're being seen online by a lot of their constituents. So this is really easy to do, very quick to do, and there'll be someone in your group that knows how to do this. If your senator has a Facebook site, go ahead and post that photo on their Facebook site as well. As you see these tweets and Facebook posts coming up that day, please share those, retweet those as appropriate to get the most mileage out of that effort as possible. And you can do this anytime, is go find your senator's Facebook and Twitter handle today or tomorrow and connect with them. Follow them to see what's on their mind. That will be very helpful for those who are active in social media, and to talk about the senators now, so that when you arrive on February 13th, you'll know what's on their mind. And speaking of that, I would also encourage you and those who will be visiting with the senator to take a peek at their website. Those should all be up now. They will have bios, the committees they're serving on. You might learn about where they grew up, what part of the state. Many situations where they're serving is not where they were raised or grew up. Find out what their interests are, and that will also help out with the conversation when you meet with them. So just a few tips for success in this process. Please coordinate the visit. So obviously we don't want to have the unit leader and the NASEB director and extension board member all calling the office, scheduling a meeting, confusing the situation. So, and also because of the times and when people can make it vary, make sure you're all on board as to when is really the best time to schedule the meeting. And so especially if you're in the western part of the state or northeast, you're a long ways away, you might just want to meet later in the morning or after lunch because it's just going to be an easier drive time to get there and back in a reasonable times of the day. Be flexible with your senator as you set up these meeting times. And so if you had a really good connection with your senator, let's just say a couple weeks ago, you feel really good about it, maybe you don't need to spend 30 minutes. Maybe it's going to be 10 or 15 minutes. You're going to do a check-in, kind of find out how the session's going for the senator. What are they working on? How can we help? Reaffirm that they're supportive of us. Ask them if they have any questions about the NU budget or Nebraska Extension to be in touch with you. And then pass that on through me. We'll visit with Heath and Michelle to make sure that we're together, we're orchestrating this to this communication so that we can help them out and they can help us. Prepare for this meaningful conversation. So, boy, I remember this at so many NASEB events. We sit in anticipation for our senator to show up for lunch. We know we're only going to have a few minutes with them. There's several of us around the table, and this great opportunity. And a lot of times, all that happens is small talk, and we never get to the most important part of the conversation about how they feel about our budget, our programs, what they know about us, and we certainly don't tell as many stories or leave as many memorable conversations with them as we could or should. So share a story. And for those board members that are coming along with you and such, ask them to start working on that. And we'll go to that story piece here in more detail in a moment. This is the preparation checklist. And this was in the NASEB newsletter that we sent out, I think, a couple weeks ago electronically. And by the way, we track that because it goes through a MailChimp format, so we know how many board members actually open those. And it was only about a third that opened that email. So whenever those come out, just as a routine, as the unit leader, if you would resend that to your board members, I think it has a better chance of being recognized and read. If you would please do that. If you need lodging, please do that. I think our block was originally, maybe through today, there have been some issues as people have called to reserve lodging. So I'm not sure where we're at with this. So maybe Linda, if you're on, you can chime in the chat. But we're asking them to extend that if possible. And actually what I've heard from one person who reserved lodging just recently is that the block rate wasn't very different than the regular rate right now. It was a couple of dollars difference. So it may not be the cost. It may just be making sure the rooms are available if that's where you choose to stay during NASEB. Schedule that meeting with your senator or senators. Really important to do that ASAP because their schedules fill up so quickly. My understanding is that I think the ESU units will be in town that day. That's their legislative day as well. I don't think that's going to be a huge group of people, so that's to our benefit, but there are always multiple groups in town each day of the legislative session visiting with senators, so please do schedule those meetings right away. And then send a confirmation of the meeting time and who will be participating in that meeting with your senator or senators to Linda Temple. And we're keeping track of that so that we can help you and be supportive in any way possible. So Linda said, I have a call into the Cornhusker to see if they will extend our block through next week, but haven't gotten back to me yet. So yeah, so just we'll let you know on that. But I think you'd be good if you need a room there to call and get a pretty good rate even beyond the block. We're not going to spend a lot of time on storytelling. We've talked about this in the past. We've talked about the pitch and how to put that together. But this is a new approach that I wanted to share with you, something to consider as you coach your extension board members to tell a story, a memorable story with their state senator. So there's really 5 parts, and it's probably not even necessary that you include all 5 parts of the process in being successful. But the first piece is why am I involved? As an extension board member or NASEB director, so why does extension or the university matter to me? Is it the mission? Is it because it's helped make so many people in our family successful? It's helped our business thrive. We feel we have great kids in our community of high character, high accomplishment, because Nebraska Extension, UNL, and you are here with us in our community. Why are they involved? Why does this matter? It's a great opening statement. It's the why. This is why I'm here. I'm volunteering to be on the extension board, and this is why I took time to be with you today to schedule this meeting. I'm so passionate about extension. The second piece is who do I want to help? So this is where they can get very specific, and they can say it might be about the tough rural ag economy that we're currently experiencing, and recognizing that UNL, INR, Extension are a huge player in helping producers navigate these tough times. It could be someone who's thinking about lack of quality childcare in their community, and the fact that we have this strong early childhood educational program across the state, which couples with CVI in some cases, where we're trying to address that problem. And it's really important to attracting families to the community and to finding employees for businesses so they can continue to succeed in the community. So who do you want to help? Is it youth? Is it about having a healthier community? Is it about eliminating food deserts? I mean, they decide, but if they can be very specific about that, that's memorable. Why are they passionate? They may be passionate because of a personal experience. There may be some facts or research or evidence. So if you look at childcare in a community, they may have some examples of the fact that it's just not adequate, and they could articulate exactly what that looks like in the community. But whatever it is, why are they passionate? Why are they so excited about serving as an extension board member? And why is extension so important to them in the community? And then if they can, as they're finishing up, extension's fantastic because they're in my community and they've been there for a long time. We've had multiple generations of our family working with extension. I don't know what we would do without extension in our community. Whatever they want to say, but ending on a high note like that would certainly leave an impression. And they could go one step farther. They could ask the senator, and they could essentially communicate to the senator how they can help. You can help us keep extension in our community, keep our university strong by voting for the NU budget, by staying in touch with us, by asking us when you need help or need talking points to visit more about or talk about the great things that Extension and IANR and UNL and the NU system offer to the state of Nebraska. So an ask is probably one of the things that we're not very good at is the ask. So why are we there? And truthfully, all elected officials are waiting for the ask. And if you've had a chance to travel to Washington, D.C. and visit with our senators there or Congress folks, in many cases, it's a question that they will ask if you don't ask it. Whether it's their aides or it's the rep themselves, they'll say, so why are you here? What do you need? What can we help you with? And so your senators in Nebraska expect this too. They expect it, so don't disappoint them. All right, so as we're finishing up here with my formal remarks, something that we're working on, and this is still a little fuzzy, but I mentioned those 28 urban senators, and that's a lot of work to get done in one day on February 13th. So just so you know, we are working on potentially a reception in March or April with our urban senators as well. And it's going to be very focused on the urban senators. So Jane and Karen, I know, are working on this and visiting with educators and assistants in their offices about what this might look like. I just wanted you to know that that's a possibility in the horizon. It's another angle. It's another way of making sure we get the attention of our urban senators. And one of the things, quite frankly, it happens with the urban senators, and I hear this from our lobbyist for NU, is that because the UNL campus, the Med Center are all in those three counties, a lot of times they overshadow extension in some ways, which is not a bad thing because the senators really like those campuses too, but they don't always clearly see that the role extension plays in their counties as well. So this senator reception would actually be our educators having educational booths at a site near the Capitol, and we'd invite them over for an evening reception to learn more about what urban extension looks like and to interact with our extension board members from those counties. So just wanted you to be aware of that, another new approach that we're working on this year. So I'm going to stop with all of that and see what questions you may have. I threw a lot at you in the last few minutes. Don't be shy.
So Dave, this is Jenny.
Hi, Jenny.
And I had a NASEB member reach out to me and ask, as she is working to set up those meetings with the senators next month, the question came back to her. So what is it you want? And how do you, I know we need the ask and everything, but what is a good way to introduce what we're intending to come for?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Jenny. That's a really good question, and I caught wind of that one yesterday or the day before. So, well, I think I would start out with is we have a group of constituents that would like to visit with you about your support for the University of Nebraska, UNL, Nebraska Extension. We have some questions for you. We want to learn more about your perspective on extension, what we can do to help you as you make your decisions about who and what you support in the legislature. Maybe asking them some questions about just learning more about their committee roles. Some of these senators, this is another thing, by the way, to take a look at when you look at their website is if they're committee chairs, the Speaker of the Legislature, obviously really important. Many of these senators have elevated roles that make it even more important to connect with them and find out what's on their mind. But really, I think the best answer to your question, Jenny, is that we have a group of constituents who would like to visit with you. And now, remind me, you've met with this senator once already. Is that correct, or did that get canceled?
No, that's correct. We have met with them.
Okay. So I would say something to the effect that we want to continue that conversation. We are in Lincoln that day. Nebraska Association of County Extension Boards are in Lincoln. We'll all be in the Capitol. We want to stop by your office, or if you can step out of the session for a few minutes, we'd like to touch base, catch up, give you an update, and see, find out what's on your mind. Does that help?
It does. Thanks.
Yeah. Yep. I think just showing them that you are interested in developing this relationship, and even if and this ranges broadly, right? So in some cases we have amazing support from senators, and there's this feeling that, well, maybe we don't need to have touch base. Let's not take that for granted. Let's keep that really, really strong. In other cases, we have some folks we're dealing with who are really tough, and they may love extension, but maybe they don't support the NU system for whatever reason. And we need to continue to work with them and continue that conversation, because we potentially could turn them around, or at least, as I said earlier, neutralize those folks so that they are not naysayers about the university or extension in small group or committee discussions. So wherever you are on that spectrum, I think there's an opportunity.
Dave, Ann Dobish asked if they coordinate visits with other counties that are in the same legislative district.
Oh, really good question, Ann. Yes, definitely coordinate those visits. And I would say, I would coordinate those. I was going to say in the large districts, if there's a lot of people coming to the Capitol that day, it might make sense to set up a couple of meetings. But for the most part, one good meeting with some great spokespeople from their district representing extension would be great. So, and I think in your case, Ann, that's three counties or so. So yeah, I would coordinate that among the other counties.
Dave, it's Jane. I'm on the phone.
Hi, Jane.
Hey, a couple of quick questions, and I think definitely I'd like to get with you offline to talk about the progress we've made so far, because we have quite a few senators that looks like we'll be meeting with. Mm-hmm. But in particular, I'm thinking that we would, if extension leadership is going to be involved with these conversations, I would like to ask for some help on our side, because we have 2 out of 3 of our appropriations committee members who are willing to meet with us. Senator Vargas and Senator Hilkeman are willing to meet in the morning. Hilkeman at 8:30 and Vargas at 9. Mm-hmm. And we have a board member contacting Clement, so we haven't heard back from him yet. But I feel that with that high profile, if we could have a team that includes someone that really can answer some questions, that might be a good strategic move. And I just wondered if we can talk about availability on that.
Absolutely, and that's a great example. That's a perfect example of, if your senator is one of these key roles, touch base, and we'll see if we can help you shore up the group that meets with that particular senator for a variety of reasons. And it might be a NASEB director who's gonna be really good with that particular senator as well. I'll visit more with our INR and NU leads on that, Jane, to find out how they want to approach that. Another part of that might be they just might want to have a conversation with your board members or whoever's participating in that meeting ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Just to make sure that, and find out how comfortable those individuals are. Some people can think quickly on their feet, are more comfortable in that situation than others. And so I was just talking with one of our NASEB directors yesterday about this, and this individual said, hey, I am very willing to join in these types of conversations as needed. This person has a long history of lobbying experience, conversing with elected officials, and would be really good in a conversation with these folks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I don't want to miss that opportunity. So.
No, that's awesome. No, thanks for sharing that. And we will definitely, and just, you just want to maybe drop me a note if there's some others like that, Jane, or others online. We'll start working on that immediately to make sure we have the right people in the room for that conversation.
And just a follow-up too, and this will continue offline, but let's see, I think it's Senator Howard. I was looking at her background, and she's on the UNO-UNMC Transition Advisory Committee, and I don't know if there's also an opportunity that we need to make sure that we know how to address her in our conversation too, just in case there's anything in the UN system that we want to make sure that we're covering, or if she had questions that someone could respond to in a competent manner. So that's another senator that I think I'd like to have a conversation with you about.
Yes, absolutely. The way Heath Mello describes this session is, he said, if you can share with me the kind of information you've just shared, Jane, he said, this changes every day, and the script or the story or the priority changes almost daily. So, all this information we're gathering will lead to whatever the conversation is going to look like on February 13th. So if they know, for example, that we have meetings scheduled with these folks now, they already know we have some time with them, and it's not just them. And they would tell you, the senators see Heath and Michelle every day, and if they were online right now, they would say, boy, your board members, extension folks are going to be heard louder than we will be, but they can help coach us in a huge way to make sure the conversation is the best it can be with these particular individuals.
Okay, great.
All right, let's talk more
offline. You bet. We'll talk offline. Thanks.
Dave, Bruce shared a question about property taxes, rural centers, and the push. So you might check your chat.
Okay, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, Bruce, that's a really good question, and you're right. We have heard this from several senators, those we've met with in the last 2 or 3 months. Another one is the Medicare funding possibility and expanded funding. I think the way we'll handle this, Bruce, is we're going to ask Heath and Michelle for some talking points around these big issues, because these are universal. Some of these issues, just to be really, really transparent, some of these issues are being talked a lot about now. They may or may not be addressed in the session. We won't know which ones until 75 days from now or so. So some of these might be more posturing. Some of these will get a ton of debate. Which ones will actually be funded or gain traction throughout the session? That's the big question that we're not sure about yet. But let me do a little homework on that one, Bruce, because that's a great question. Their do we counter that? Or I think one way we can do this is just talk about the fact that what Nebraska Extension brings to their district. If you remember our unit leader conference in December, and by the way, if you've checked your email today, you'll see I sent you all of the PowerPoints and presentations that our Abby Sarek and Jake Messersmith shared with us that day. You remember Jake talking about, with adaptive leadership, that people aren't always concerned about change, but they're concerned about what they will lose. And I think we just want our senators to know that a reduction in the NU budget or a lack of growth in the NU budget could always potentially come back to impact extension, and that's in their backyard. So if you're a rural senator and you think that's just going to affect Lincoln, it's not. It potentially affects their constituents. So Bruce, I think if you were talking to these folks about 4-H, and I mean you've watched multiple generations grow up through 4-H, become great leaders in the community. If you could tell that story or have a board member share that story passionately about, we don't want to take this for granted. And Extension's a huge part of making this happen, and all the volunteers that leverage Extension in the community on top of what, the funded folk, the paid faculty and staff, just put a bug in their ear about what they have that they may not be considering, what they may lose if they vote against for something else like property tax or Medicaid over the NU budget. We're a huge target because I think the NU budget's the third largest budgetary item in the state budget. So we're always a target. And I'll do some more homework on this one, Bruce, and share that with unit leaders. These are really good questions. Okay, Jackie, I see your comment. I'll make a note to touch base with you on that situation. I realize that everyone's going to have unique situations with your senators. So, boy, if you just want to visit one-on-one about a challenge or an opportunity you have with your senator, please just drop me an email or let's set up a time to talk about it. Okay. I'm going to shut off the recording for a second and see if there's any other questions that anyone wants to ask.